Otto Adolf Eichmann, who goes by the name of Adolf Eichmann, had significant impacts on World War II and greatly contributed to the Holocaust. He was born on March 29th of 1906 in Solingen, Germany. He and his family, who were Protestant, which is a form of Christianity that they followed, had moved to a city named Linz in northern Austria where Eichmann had been raised. As he grew older, Adolf did not pass his schooling in the engineering field, so he decided to become a traveling salesman for a company specifying in oil and did that from 1927 all the way to 1932. A friend of Adolf's named Ernest Kaltenbrunner proposed the idea of Adolf joining the Nazi Party of Austria. Eventually, he did exactly that on the 1st of April, 1932. A year later, he decided to move to Bavaria, Germany. After enrolling in 14 months of military training, he was granted the rank of sergeant, which led Adolf to unite with the Security Service main office. He stayed in this organization until 1939, which is when its authorities were handed over to the Reich Security Main Office, also known as the RSHA. Both Eichmann and Hitler believed that the Jewish people in Germany were the cause of the majority of the country's problems. After Eichmann was now working under the RSHA, he was given the power to be the head of the department and oversee mandatory immigration of the Jews. Adolf made sure that this was obeyed by using Nazi to threaten and intimidate many Jews. And in the fall of 1941, which was still during World War II, Hitler ordered his Nazis to deport all German Jews, keeping in mind that there were 338,000 of them. Eichmann tried to make room for all of these Jews in what they called the ghettos of Eastern Europe. However, they were all full. The only thing that the Germans could think of was to take 25,000 residents that lived in these areas to ravines and kill them, as they would not be easily found. After that, the German Jews who were deported would then replace their spots in these ghettos. Despite all of these killings, there were still more Jews than there were space, which led to extreme unsustainability, overcrowding, lack of resources, and safety and sanitation hazards. This, and the very minimal achievements in regards to the German invasion, was more than enough to persuade the Nazis that they needed to find a solution to the Jewish problem soon. The famous conference that took place in Berlin, Germany on the 20th of January 1942 was called the Wannsee Conference. The gathering of Ryan Heydrich, who represented the senior government and was an SS official, and many other Nazi officials, including Eichmann, was in their eyes what needed to be done in order to plan the final solution to the Jewish question. With regards to the 11 million Jews, the plan was to make them work on the east side of the roadworks, which was where the death camps were. Instead of migrating the Jews to somewhere else that had more land, the Germans now want to exterminate them. Those who could not work and were taken for what they called special treatment. Realistically, that was basically code for you are going to be killed. Eichmann was first given the role of looking over the process of transportation of the Jews to these death camps. The chief of RSHA, Ryan Heydrich, put Adolf on the job of figuring out how to implement the final solution. In other words, he was in charge of things like getting the Jews to the camps, organizing the camps, knowing what is going to happen to the Jews when they arrive, or even how they were going to be killed. He was ordered to present what he had come up with in front of the Nazi Party officials and leaders, as he was practically Adolf Hitler's right-hand man when it came to this topic. In 1942, this plan was not only set to impact German Jews, but also Jews from Slovakia, Belgium, Netherlands, and France. They were all deported to these death camps and killed because of Eichmann and other Nazi leaders. In the following 2 years, Jews from Hungary, Greece, and Italy were now being deported to these camps as well. During the operation of deporting the Hungarian Jews, Eichmann decided that he would come with the Jews while being transported to the camps. From that country alone, over 440,000 Hungarian Jews were sent to a death camp in Auschwitz. Most of them died as the Germans released toxic gases which would kill if it was inhaled. Adolf Eichmann had continued to do this until the end of World War II, which occurred at the beginning of September of 1945. His horrific and dehumanizing actions resulted in the deaths of 6 million Jews. As soon as the war had come to an end, many Nazi leaders were starting to get caught by US troops and taken to prison camps. Eichmann happened to be one of those leaders, and he was captured. Nonetheless, in 1946, he had managed to escape and make a run for it. He had changed his identity and started his journey by first traveling through Europe and then going into the Middle East. By the year 1950, he went to South America and finally arrived and settled in his hiding place in Argentina. Adolf Eichmann was living under the name of another, and that was Ricardo Clemens. 7 years later, a prosecutor from Germany had found out where Eichmann was and discreetly enlightened Israel about his whereabouts. Israel agents from the intelligence service went to Argentina to look for Eichmann. Finally, on May 11, 1960, he was found and located in the Buenos Aires, which is a province in Argentina. That same day, the man named Ricardo Clemens was kidnapped by the Israeli agents and transferred into a safe house where he was questioned. Clemens admitted that he was the one and only Adolf Eichmann and was taken back to Israel. A decision was made that Eichmann was going to have his trial held on Israeli soil. What was interesting, though, is that Israel wanted to show what the Nazis put the Jewish through. Permission was granted to capital cities that allowed them to film Eichmann's trial so that it can be broadcasted on live television for the whole world to see. This was viewed as the trial of the century. In fact, this may be one of the most important television events in history. Leo Hurwitz was set to direct this trial, and Milton Friedman was going to produce it. As the trial began, the judge listed 15 crimes that Eichmann was being accused of one by one. Each time a crime was listed, Eichmann pleaded not guilty. Survivors of the Holocaust testified against Eichmann by telling their stories of what they had experienced. Many were beyond traumatized from the incidents they were forced to endure, but did it anyway with the man that caused all of their suffering in the same room. One of the witnesses' names was Michael Podlebnik. He was a camp survivor. He begins his testimony as he explains how Jews such as himself were convinced to board the trucks that took them to the death camps in the first place. They were told to go to a certain bathhouse, which was where all the trucks were. Michael continues by saying that there were men in the SS who beat them with large sticks until they went into the trucks. He says that many Jews were confused since at the time they did not know where they were going, so they just followed orders. In The Eichmann Show, which is a movie on Netflix, there was a clip of Michael's testimony. There were trucks where people were locked up inside and gas was piped into the trucks, he testified. The gas that Eichmann and his Nazis released killed anyone that inhaled it. Michael was not put in the trucks as Eichmann had decided that his job would be to dig the graves of the murdered Jews. Michael said that he could hear the people inside these vehicles screaming, but then the sounds died off as they were getting killed. One day, he saw his own wife and 2 children's murdered bodies as they were being unloaded from the trucks. That is the story of only one man who had suffered from Adolf Eichmann's activities. Who knows the tragic and catastrophic events that Jews had to withstand? At the end of this trial, the judges had reached a final verdict of guilty against Eichmann with all 15 crimes that he had committed. He was charged with the death penalty and was hanged on May 31st of 1962 in Tel Aviv, Israel.